welcome to Destination Draft Day, your one-stop shop for all things NFL draft, NFL talk, college football, and we're here to talk about it all. We are finally in playoff season of the NFL. We have predictions coming at you hot for the end of the episode. Really most of the episode will be going game by game all the way through the Super Bowl. Last year we did it. We had some fun with it. We're going to try it again. Hopefully one of us can predict the winner. And then, we got some other talk as well. There's been some firings on the coaching front. There's been some rumors. Nick's been grinding Twitter trying to figure out who the Giants' next head coach will be. So we'll be discussing all of that. Get your comments in the comment section. Let us know if there's anything that you want to know about, if you want us to discuss, and we'll be more than happy to do so. But before we get to anything football related, Nick Durst, how are you?
Mike, I'm doing good. We got through the week here. Work week's wrapping up. It's been a good week as far as, everything going on here. So just looking forward to this weekend. We'll start with recapping Monday night. And you changed your pick. You went with Alabama, but the Bulldogs came through. So Georgia, congrats to them. They're national champions.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I didn't expect it at all. So huge props to the Georgia Bulldogs for winning it. Stetson Bennett played well. The defense was able to control things. Obviously, the injury to Jameson Williams really kind of set back this Alabama offense. But at the same time, that doesn't diminish what Georgia was able to accomplish in this game. And they put together a historic season, one that has probably one of the most talented defenses we've seen in at least the college football playoff era. And, congrats to them. They're very deserving of their title as national champions.
Yeah, and what did you think of the quarterback play?
I think Bryce Young showed a lot of the potential that he's going to continue to have and be loved for, but I think there were some moments that show that, he's still a work in progress, and there's still some major progressions that need to be made for him to really kind of build up his stock. I think he's similar to Deshaun Watson in a lot of areas. He's a little bit smaller in terms of frame, but I think they have a lot of similar traits and tools. You look around at next year's class, and after Bryce Young, I think there's a similar kind of fall off. So he really needs to make sure that he makes those jumps and makes the proper development to kind of be top of the class. For Stetson Bennett, it was a great college performance. I think that he really kind of wrote the ship, and it was something that we talked about. If Georgia was going to win, I was of the mindset that they had to be aware when to make the quarterback switch. Stetson Bennett never really made the opportunity for that to happen. He had some struggles early on, but Georgia's offense got going, and they were able to really kind of control that game and eventually win it all.
And a very long game, as we projected. So no doubt about the length there. All right. So then we'll go on the order of the week here. Tuesday, Michael. The Giants decide that it's enough. Let me fire Joe Judge. So Joe Judge is gone, which I think at this point for a GM, I think this should make the Giants' job the top of your list because you're coming in with a clean slate. You can pick your coach. You have 2 picks in the top 8, which is unheard of. You can do whatever you want there. Draft edge rusher, go with an offensive lineman, or move those people for a quarterback. So I'm surprised they ended up letting go of Judge. He kind of got a bit of a raw deal because Gettleman was just a disaster. But now you're looking at this job, and despite them being a terrible team, it's probably, at least for a GM, a pretty attractive destination.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of talent on this roster, and you look at what the Giants have already built in place is pretty good. The defense is pretty solidly built. I think there's a lot of foundational pieces for this unit. You look at the quarterback situation, that's where the big question mark is. But at the same time, like you said, they have the capital to where if they are adamant that they don't want to roll with Daniel Jones, they could probably swing a trade for someone that would please them to really kind of make that next move and enter the new era of their GM, just time. So whether it's Daniel Jones, whether they make a trade for someone like an Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, or whoever's out there, I think the opportunity is there, and I think the talent on this roster is a little bit underrated because there are some great weapons. Whether you're talking about Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, there's still another year Saquon Barkley. There's pieces on this defense, like I said, I think the ability to retool this roster is there to where this is a quick one off season, two off season build into a playoff team rather than something where you're taking a franchise and you have 3 years to kind of build a foundation and then hopefully, make it in the playoffs as a fringe team and then hopefully become a contender after that. This is something that you can turn quickly into a contending team.
Yeah, I think right now it's all to come back down to the quarterback. I do believe that if the Giants hire the assistant general manager from the Bills, who was the first person interviewed, I believe you have to assume Dabble will be the front runner for head coach coming over from Buffalo with him. And at that point, he might want a quarterback like Josh Allen that could run, has a big arm. So why not the backup quarterback for the Bills and Mitch Trubisky? I can definitely see the Giants bringing him in. Now, is he going to come in as a starter? I don't know. Maybe they bring him in. They say, let's see what happens with you and Daniel Jones. We'll kind of take it from there. I'd be okay with that. I just don't want them going into the season where it's like Daniel Jones, he's going to be our QB. Even though he's going to get hurt, we're coming back. We'll got Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon will play 7 or 8 games. He did nothing for you. I think when you have, Daniel Jones, his best trait, Michael, is that he can run. He's actually elite. He's faster than Lamar Jackson, faster than Kyler Murray. So when you have a quarterback like that, your backup needs to have the same traits. You need to have somebody who could run, be mobile. You go from Daniel Jones to Mike Glennon, and it couldn't be more different, except for the fact that they turn the ball over a ton. So I think what it all comes down to with the Giants is who's going to be the quarterback, and then can you get another offensive lineman? I think Nate Soldier is probably going to be done. I think Sterling Shepard's going to be out. They're not going to re-sign him. They think Tony is great, but Kenny Galladay had no touchdowns this year. He missed a ton of games. Kadarius Toney missed a ton of games. Saquon Barkley is going to be back for the year, but beyond that, who really knows? But you're right. They have some good pieces in place defensively. I think if they can get a pass rusher, offensive, like a right tackle, because Thomas was actually pretty good this year. Right tackle, probably want to get a guard. And you get a quarterback. This is a team that could certainly contend because the Eagles, they made the playoffs. They're not that great. Washington football team, they got a lot of issues, especially at quarterback. So it could be a 1-2 off-season thing, but it better be a 1 off-season thing because the last 3 Giants coaches only lasted 2 seasons, with McAdoo not even getting through the second season. So you're going on to your 3rd coach in 7 years. Maybe there's a curse of Tom Coughlin there because ever since they fired him, it's been downhill, Michael.
He just put some voodoo out there on the Giants, couldn't get over the fact that they let him go. Yeah. I think this is one of those rosters that I understand the offensive line still has its issues. I understand that there are still some pieces that need to kind of get going. Maybe Kyle Rudolph isn't the most premier tight end. Evan Ingram's going to be going in free agency, hit or miss type player, but still something that could be a little bit appealing. But, you get a QB and things change in terms of the narrative of this team. You look at what Deshaun Watson was able to accomplish in Houston with a bad offensive line. And also it's just something that offensive lines are generally easy to Band-Aid. I understand long-term there's still a lot of issues, and you may want to invest draft capital into it, and the draft capital it takes to get a quarterback would potentially delay that. But if you can get someone like a Ted Karras or, like a Matt Skura, you're going to be getting someone who can kind of right the ship for 1, 2, 3 years as a serviceable starter while you continue to find guys in the draft. And it's something that, yes, it's risky. I understand a lot of people hate the idea of, maybe passing over the offensive line before you get your QB in place. But, a talent at QB is the most crucial thing in football. And unless you have just this absolutely dominant foundation, kind of like how Cleveland built, where Baker maybe didn't need to be the superstar, you can't really rely on having an okay quarterback. And while Daniel Jones has potential, while Daniel Jones has some upside, he's been okay. And I don't think the Giants make the necessary strides next year if they just run it back with Daniel Jones as their quarterback and don't really add much more than just rookies to this roster.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, I want to get to another fine, but first, you kind of jog my memory here. We got to talk about the Colts being non-committal to Carson Wentz here moving forward. We talked about this on Monday, but it seems like they're on the same page as us, which is like if there is something better out there, we're going to pursue it. If not, like we'll have to bring Wentz back as a starter.
Yeah, it felt a little weird because we saw how Wentz fell apart when there was the whole Nick Foles situation and they drafted Jalen Hurts and he just completely lost all confidence and was ready to leave the Eagles and hated his coach. And then the GM's like, "Oh yeah, I'm disappointed in how he played. We'll see what happens, but I'm not sure." Like that just seems like a horrible way to kind of like manage your QB. And I know that transparency is great and it can be a positive thing, but at the same time, I don't know. There's a little bit of coach talk that you need to have where you're just like, "Oh yeah, Wentz is our starting quarterback, and we're really excited to see what he can do in 2022." And if he's no longer your starting quarterback, if he's not on your team 2022, that's not a lie. What you said, you're just excited to see what he does somewhere else or something. So I don't know, but it sounds like they're in the market. They may be willing to swing a trade. Maybe, if Rodgers is truly available, they're willing to do whatever it takes because they have the roster in place. But man, I mean, I thought they were going to run it back. They ended the season pretty well. I know they lost those last two games, especially that Jaguars game was really embarrassing, but you would have assumed this was one of the hotter teams to end the season. Carson Wentz wasn't awful. He had his moments where he looked pretty good, some moments where he looked pretty bad. It was a little bit of a roller coaster, but I'm surprised to see that the Colts aren't just kind of sitting on their hands. And I say the Rams because I was thinking it kind of reminds me of Jared Goff, where they just kind of made it known, like, look, this isn't what we wanted. We think we can do a lot more with a better QB. So maybe they'll be in the market for someone and they're willing to make that trade to make it happen.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks available this offseason. Maybe not as much as last year, but certainly going to be a lot available. And one of them's going to be Deshaun Watson. We think, maybe not. Maybe the NFL let this go out in a year. But what are the Texans doing? How do you fire your head coach who, in the first season, literally you can't name a player on the active roster if you're a casual fan. And this team, they did what you expect them to do, lose. They were not a last place team. They won that first game of the season. And then you fire a coach. I don't get it, Michael. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I assume it was just like a 1-year agreement and both sides knew what the case was going to be. When he was brought in, it was like, hey, look, this is a disaster right now. We need someone who's going to make this locker room kind of bond together, be a player's coach. I also think maybe this is a sign that they feel like someone's out there that they just couldn't pass up on. And it sounds like that would be Brian Flores because the connection's there with Caserio. We know that. And we know that Flores was all in on Deshaun Watson. So maybe this is a last-ditch effort, and maybe, it might not even have anything to do with Watson. This might be a situation where Caserio is saying, look, I know Brian Flores. He's one of the brightest minds. Whether he keeps Watson or not in Houston, I need this guy as my head coach, and I believe in him 1,000%. And maybe that's why they fired Coley. It seems like a circumstantial type of firing because David Coley overachieved. This was a team that people expected to be 1-16, 0-17, with all the turmoil going on with Deshaun Watson, with the lack of talent that they were really able to acquire throughout the course of the season. They were consistently just kind of bringing in veteran free agents on small deals, and they were able to, kind of overachieve and create a little bit of a successful season. They got some nice play out of Tyrod Taylor. They got some nice play out of Davis Mills. This was a better season than people expected for the Texans. But I think it was just something where, he told Coley, look, this is probably a 1-year gig. We just need someone to kind of smooth things over. And then when
he only got a
overachieved,
he only got a 2-year deal too, which is very rare for a coach.
Yeah, I think it was something that they knew was going to be short term. And I think when Flores became available, Caserio said, look, while Coley overachieved, this is a guy that I feel like I cannot miss out on.
Yeah, I think Flores makes sense there. And you know who he maybe he's going to put Joe Judge on his staff as one of his coordinators. Or he could probably just bring his host staff over from Miami. But I'm interested to see where Joe Judge ends up. I think Bill would definitely take him back next season if that's what he wants.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that would be the case. But, what's really going to be the telling part of Brian Flores in Houston or wherever he lands, there's been talks of Chicago as well, is who he brings in an offensive coordinator, because that's kind of been his Achilles heel as a head coach, is bringing on someone to really write the offense, and it just hasn't happened. Miami was, I think, 3 offensive coordinators in his 3 years as head coach, and this final year they kind of got it going a little bit, but there are still some struggles. Flores needs to kind of maybe accept the fact that he's not the greatest evaluator of who can run his offense, and find someone, maybe get the opinion of others, maybe bring in someone to kind of make that decision for him, let the GM decide, and let someone run the offense, because Flores is one of the greatest defensive minds in the NFL. Absolutely. But as a head coach, you got to be able to get a full staff together. And when you're a great defensive mind, you need a great offensive mind to help you out on that side of the ball. And Flores really hasn't had that in his era at Miami. And, now he's heading to a new organization, whether that's as a defensive coordinator or head coach. I assume it's safe to say that Flores will be a head coach again someday, whether it's this year or next year or maybe 2 years down the road. He's going to be a head coach. He didn't underachieve in Miami. There's maybe an argument he overachieved given some of the issues that were on that roster when he first came in. But I think when his time comes, whether it's this offseason or in the future, he needs to find an offensive coordinator that is going to really run this offense efficiently.
If it wasn't the fact that it's possibly going to be the Texans as the job, I would have said Bill O'Brien would make a ton of sense to be his offensive coordinator.
Absolutely.
But not maybe if they go to Chicago. But what about Joe Brady? He's out there.
Yeah, that was someone that I thought was, a great candidate, just because we've seen him successfully run offenses. And I think, there's still some question marks, and rightful ones, about his era in Carolina, because he was passing the ball like crazy with a team that had Cam Newton and Sam Darnold as their quarterback. But I think the same issue is they had Chuba Hubbard in the backfield. They didn't have a very good roster for his offense. And I understand that, with whoever he goes to, maybe it's the Texans or the Bears, they aren't necessarily the best offense for his scheme either. But I do think that he has the kind of decision-making and smarts to run an offense. And I think if given the chance to really get redemption in that aspect and kind of run the offense again, I think he will probably learn a little bit from his mistakes. And I would love to see what he could do with Justin Fields, if it's not like a Brian Dabble, which I've been saying almost every episode, it feels like, that I would just absolutely love to see Dabble and Fields together.
Yeah. We'll see. I think Dabble's the top guy in the market at this point, of the coordinators. I think Flores of the head coaches is probably the top guy. But, the question is, where are the Jaguars going from here? You got to be scared to take that job, I think.
Yeah, it feels like with Trent Bulk in town, I would stay as far away from this job as possible. He's the guy that chased Harbaugh out of town for San Francisco. He's the guy that, just kind of was the reason 49ers went from this great team to a dark era of football. And I don't know why he's on the Jaguars. I don't know why anyone would want him in their organization with how poorly he managed that situation. And from what we've heard, it sounds like people were very adamant, like, hey, we need to get rid of this guy, to Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, and he's giving him another year. So I don't know. If you're able to,
because it's basically, if you sign on with him and you're the coach for the year, there's a chance he might get fired, which then means you're going to be fired. So it's not a good situation.
Yeah, it's a bad situation. I don't like it at all. I think Doug Peterson makes a lot of sense just from a logistics standpoint. I think he'd do well with Lawrence. I think he'd do well in terms of kind of getting that roster at least to a point where it's a contending team, or at least like a playoff type team. Maybe he doesn't get them to that Super Bowl. I'm not saying that he can't do it. Obviously, he did it with the Eagles, but maybe it's a guy that is sort of like the bridge head coach. But I think he's someone that could very easily turn this organization around. I
Yeah.
just, in terms of every single coaching candidate, I'd say be wary because I do not trust Trent Bowl to really kind of make this job easy at all.
Yeah, I would say bring back Jack Del Rio. Now with the Dolphins job, it seems intriguing. Winning record last year, maybe some question marks at quarterback. Probably the third best team in your division, but it's a good market. Now, of course, everybody's saying, well, Ross, he's the big Michigan booster. So if Michigan thinks they're going to lose Harbaugh, then might as well take him to go there. But I think Harbaugh is just using the NFL and get these rumors kind of a new contract with Michigan and get some more money. But do you see Harbaugh leaving anywhere? If so, where would it be? And also, what do you think is going to play out here in Miami?
Yeah, I think if Harbaugh leaves, it's for Chicago or Las Vegas. And it feels like Las Vegas is set on Bisaccia being the head coach. So I think that one's closed. I think that one is fully filled now, at least for another year. We'll see what happens. But Chicago,
especially if they win a game, if they win
yeah, absolutely.
against the Bengals.
Yeah, if they beat the Bengals and they are right there in the mix of, just being really a couple steps away from being a contender. I like Carr. I think with pieces like Darren Waller, pieces on the defense like Max Crosby, you have a great roster in place. So, there's a lot of momentum to be had if they can win a playoff game this year. Still a lot of momentum just in general with how they were able to make playoffs despite all the outside noise and just terrible things that happened. But Chicago seems like the biggest contender for Harbaugh. I get Miami as well, especially if Ross would kind of give him some job security. But I think ultimately Harbaugh loves Michigan, and I think he wants to stay. But I get it from the sense of this guy was on the hot seat just as early as last year. I mean, when we were talking regular season, we thought Harbaugh was done at Michigan. And then he was able to stay a year. He took some pay cuts. He hired on some new coordinators, and he turned it around. Obviously, he did a wonderful job. But at the same time, he may have said to himself, look, this is clear that I'm not necessarily a long-term option here. If we're to struggle again, then I'm going to be out. I don't have the longest leash. So maybe it's something where he is saying to himself now, like, okay, with the way that NIL is in college football, with the way that I was on the hot seat just as early as last year, it's a game where I want to go to the NFL and, kind of solidify 3 years rather than 2 or something like that. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, you have a vacancy. I think every team should call him to see his interest because he's that much better than everybody else.
Yeah, I have a quick take that I want to make about this coaching openings. I think that the Miami Dolphins job might be the worst in football now.
Okay.
And maybe not as bad as the Jaguars because of bulk, but I think
worse than the Texans?
I think worse than the Texans because with the Texans, you have a top pick right now. You have a lot of good contracts on the roster. You have the capital or Deshaun Watson. So either, 3 first-round picks or Deshaun Watson on your roster. I think that Tua is a bad QB, and I don't think that it's necessarily the right move to move on.
That's what we heard. Flores got fired because he was yelling at the GM. You should have took Herbert, you idiot.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Tua. I'm rooting for him. I want him to be good, but I don't think he shows enough to ever be anything more than like a Jimmy Garoppolo type. And I don't think that that's ever going to get you over the hump. I don't think the Dolphins have a good enough roster to where this is going to really kind of be a good enough team to where you're saying, oh, yeah, a Jimmy Garoppolo still gets us to the Super Bowl. That's not how it works. I know he made it to the Super Bowl, but that was with the 49ers team that had one of the best roster built in the NFL. For the Dolphins, I think the defense is going to fall off a little bit with Flores gone. I think that's going to hurt. I think the offensive line is a train wreck. I think the wide receiver unit still has some question marks. Devontae Parker, kind of inconsistent. Jalen Waddle's a stud. He's a superstar, going to be a superstar for a long time. I had him as my wide receiver 1, even over guys like Jamar Chase. For the long term, I thought Chase would be better right away, but I think Waddle just has so much upside. But I think the Dolphins have a lot of red flags, and I think Flores was their scapegoat for it. And I don't think it was the right move, and I'm worried about the future of Miami. And I think because of the downturn, I think there's an inevitable decrease in just success for this team, that coach is going to get blamed for that, despite it being kind of just right out in the front and very blatantly obvious. And therefore, they get fired after to fix up this offensive line, develop Tua, get the defense fixed up again as departs. So the Dolphins have some talent, and in a sense, like if they were viewed as bad, that a coach needed to rebuild it now. So as we move on to the show, it's time to talk some playoff predictions. Nick Durst is going to go first for you guys. And Nick, you got Green Bay win it all. Take us through your bracket.
Yeah, so before last playoffs of last season, I said, I think we're going to have Packers, Bills, Super Bowl. Didn't get it last year. We're close. Both teams in the championship game. And now this year, before the season, I said same thing. Bills, Packers. And I'll walk you through this here. We'll start with the opening round, which is this weekend here. Bengals and Raiders. I got to go with the Bengals. I think they got more talent. I think they're going to start off this game slow, though, because obviously Burrow and the big guys sat last week. So it really would not surprise me at all whatsoever if the Raiders win this one, Michael. Wouldn't surprise me. I'm going to pick the Bengals. Bills, Patriots, I think it's going to be crazy. It's going to be Bills Mafia is going to be wild. It's going to be -4 degrees, though. Won't be as windy, so shouldn't play that much of a factor, really. It's going to be not that tornado type of game. I think Josh Allen is going to run wild in this one. 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards rushing, and the Bills are going to squeak one out against the Patriots, just like we saw a few weeks ago. Chiefs Steelers, would love to see Big Ben get the win here. I don't think it's going to happen, though. Chiefs are going to win this one, thanks to Travis Kelce. To the right side of things, the Cardinals lost last week. They could have got the home field in this game, but they didn't want that. They're not good at home. They got the Rams right where they want them, on the road at SoFi. Last time they played there, of course, the Cardinals won the game. It wasn't a problem. So I'm going to go with the best quarterback here, which is Kyler Murray. The Cardinals will win this game. And what I will say is the pressure is on Matthew Stafford more in this playoff than any other quarterback. Because if you remember, Michael, who led the Rams to a wild card weekend win last year with a broken hand? Jared Goff. So if he's able to win that playoff game, you better hope Stafford can win the Super Bowl. And I don't think he's going to be able to. Cardinals win this one. Cowboys and 49ers. I don't like either of these teams. What I will say about the Cowboys is I think their numbers are a little deceiving. Ezekiel Elliott rushed for 1,000 yards, but most of those yards came in the first 5 weeks. He's been trending down. Diggs has all the interceptions, but he's given up the most yards against this year as far as cornerbacks is concerned. Prescott has played well, but I don't think he should be the comeback player of the year. I think it should be Joe Burrow. 49ers, I do not like Kyle Shanahan, as you know. But there's just something about Jimmy G right now that he's just working on some magic. And the 49ers defense looks good. I think they're going to be able to stop the Cowboys. 49ers will win this game. Now, to the Bucks Eagles. This game is going to be played in torrential downpour, it says. So maybe it'll be closer than we expect. But the Buccaneers will win this one. And I think we'll see another heavy dose of Gronkowski. No doubt. All right, now to the next weekend here. Titans and the Bengals. Again, this is a game I could see going either way. I'd love to pick the Bengals here, but if history tells us anything, it's that the 1 seed always gets to the conference championship. I think that's going to happen here. Once again, Titans will win. Derrick Henry will have a pretty good game. and they'll be on to host the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs and the Bills have been waiting for this rematch since last year. We all thought it would be in the AFC title game, but it will not be. And this game is going to be fantastic. It's going to be a great one. I think the Bills, they did what they had to do in the offseason. They had to get some defensive ends to compete with the Chiefs. They did. That's what they did in the draft. And Josh Allen, he's playing at a great level right now. There's all the Bills they have lost in a while. Chiefs had that big loss to the Bengals, so they're going to get rolling again. Bills will win this game. To the NFC, the Packers will easily beat the San Francisco 49ers. They got the better quarterback. They got the best receiver. So the Packers will win that one. It's almost like another bye week, I think. That's how much better I think they are than the 49ers. Or even if the Cowboys move on, I think it'll be the same deal for me in the scenario.
I got a question for you real quick. Would that be Jimmy Garoppolo's last game as a 49er, in your opinion, if he's able to get them to the divisional round?
I think Michael, I think it better not be. I think it will be, but I think they should. I think that's a poor decision. I think that ultimately is what will cost Kyle Shanahan his job 2 years from now. Because if you're getting to the divisional round with Jimmy Garoppolo, and next year you're going to start Trey Lance, let's say you miss the playoffs. It's like, what are you guys doing? John Lynch, he'll be out of a job too, Mike. You cannot take the step back there. It's not a scenario where you're going from Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes. Trey Lance is not going to be on the same level as Patrick Mahomes. I know you like Trey Lance, but do you think this is it for Jimmy Garoppolo in this playoffs?
Yeah, I do think that this playoff run is probably it. I've heard Indianapolis as the name that kind of got circled around Jimmy, and it makes sense, especially because if they think that Carson Wentz kind of can't manage as well, then Jimmy Garoppolo is probably one of the better game managers in a sense. And I do think that Trey Lance offers the upside that they have been building towards. And, that's kind of what you told Jimmy when you drafted him at number 3 is, look, you got this year and then we're going on to our next guy. And, whether that's for better or worse has to be debated, obviously. But I do think that this will be Jimmy's final time with the 49ers, whether it's, first round exit, second round exit, maybe Super Bowl victory, could be the one thing that kind of undoes it. But other than that, I think this is it for Jimmy. This is his last 2 games as a 49er.
Well, I think if you put Garoppolo on the Broncos next year, they're a playoff. They could be a playoff team. I think he's good enough where he's going to get you to the playoffs. I'm very curious to see where he ends up. Would love to have him on the Giants. Would not mind that at all, one bit. All right. Now, Bucks Cardinals, I'm torn because I've been all over the Cardinals all season long. But I can't pick against Tom Brady yet. The only way I can pick against him is if he's playing somebody on his level. So I'm going to go with Brady in this one. Again, Gronkowski and Brady, they're going to lead the Bucks to the NFC title game. All right, AFC title game, Titans-Bills should be a good one, but I think the Bills are the better team. The Bills would have had the number 1 seed had they not had to play the Patriots in a tornado. They would have won that game. They would have got the 1 seed. So I'm going to go with the Bills here. And the Bucks will fall this year in the rematch in Green Bay because Aaron Rodgers is just on a tear. And say away to see the Bucks season end. I think, Michael, that next season will be the last for Brady, Arians, and Gronkowski. I think they'll go out on a little retirement tour. And I think right now, they told me they're going to win the Super Bowl next season. I'm going to tell you it's the Bucks. Brady, of course, will go out with a Super Bowl victory. But this year, it's the year of Aaron Rodgers, Packers, Bills. You did not want to make Aaron Rodgers mad. You got him mad. What does he do? He's like, you know what? Give me back-to-back MVPs. I got this. This team is so good this year, Michael. One of their losses, they lost to the Chiefs by 3 points. That was because Aaron Rodgers didn't play. And they lose week 17 by 3 because Rodgers didn't play the full game. They're another level. They're the best team in the league. So give me the Green Packers to win the Super Bowl. And of course, without a doubt, Aaron Rodgers is the MVP.
Interesting. And we got a comment from the comment section. Exo Samantha says probably Joe Burrow with greater than signs. So she's liking the Bengals, it seems. They're one of the hotter teams in football. I wouldn't be surprised. But we're going to switch the bracket over to mine now. And, old habits die hard. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So I'm rolling with the Bucs, but let's go through it. I got the Bengals beating the Raiders in the opening round. I think, like Samantha said in the comment section, Joe Burrow, you can't not love what he's doing. Joe Mixon as well. So just the Joe backfield for Cincinnati is absolutely dominant. Jamar Chase, wonderful wide receiver. I'm taking the Patriots over the Bills, putting on the bias hat. I'm riding my fandom. Look, I think this is going to be a freezing cold game, and that's where Allen kind of has his mishaps. That's where he doesn't play as well. And I think this is an opportunity for that Patriots defense to really capitalize. I think on the ground, the Patriots are better. We saw that in the, tornado game, as Nick called it. And I think with a game on the ground, the Patriots have a chance to really win this one. And I think while the circumstances are more weather-based and talent-based, I do think the Patriots pull this one out and get into the second round. I expect the Chiefs and Steelers game to be close. Something that's just like annoying, and you're like, why is this close? Because the Steelers offense can't get going, but the Chiefs are just letting them hang around. So I'm going to say like a 24-13 boring game where you kind of know the Chiefs are winning the entire time, but it's not like a complete blowout of a game. On the other side, I got the Rams beating the Cardinals. I think Stafford's going to at least get one victory. And I got the Cowboys beating the 49ers. I do agree with Nick entirely that there are a lot of issues with the Cowboys. There's a lot of red flags heading into this playoff season. I don't think they're a legitimate contender, but I do think that they are better than the 49ers in this game. I think with Jimmy Garoppolo, it's kind of been up and down all season. He definitely has been a little bit hot as of late, but I think in this playoff run, we're going to see the Cowboys pull it out. And I think the Bucs control the Eagles game. I don't know if I think the Bucs necessarily dominate it, but I do think this is one where the defense is going to shut down the run game. You're going to force Jalen Hurts to pass. And when Jalen Hurts is forced to pass, he kind of has his issues. And I think that's going to be the circumstance here for the Bucs to get their victory in the opening weekend. As we go to the second round, I got Tennessee beating the Patriots. We saw it when Brady's last game. Derrick Henry's a hard guy to stop, and I think he'll be back fully healthy for the Titans, and that's going to be huge for them. I think them not having Derrick Henry all season might have been for the better. I think that it made this offense adapt. I think it made this defense step up. And now with Derrick Henry back, I think there's going to be necessary strides for this team that's going to get them into a very great. And I don't trust Tannehill 100%. I think this is a game where maybe it's kind of like that Bills-Patriots game, but obviously I think the Titans are a little bit better on the ground. So I think this is one that's going to be very fun, very sluggish maybe to some, but defensive grudge match, and I think the Titans end up running away with it. And then I have the Chiefs versus the Bengals in a rematch where the Bengals won in the regular season, but I think the Chiefs get it done this time. It's hard to beat a good team twice, and I think the Chiefs are a very good team. Hard to bet against Mahomes in playoff time, but I am doing it the next weekend when the Titans beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. Keep an eye on it. I think the Titans have a very complete roster this year and enough to make the Super Bowl. But before we do that, let's get to the divisional round. Packers-Rams is one I was super torn on. I like the Rams. I think there's still so much talent on this roster that assuming they rest up, assuming they get healthy, this team is going to be a good one. But, man, they've just been inconsistent all year. And I know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had that same issue last year to where it would almost feel like, oh, well, we just saw it last year, and now we're being dumb and overestimating the struggles of the Rams. But I don't trust the Rams to actually follow through with the Super Bowl expectation. Packers win this one, get to the championship or conference championship, where they face off with the Buccaneers, who I have beating the Cowboys. I think when you slow down the run as badly as the Buccaneers are able to do to the Cowboys, the passing game obviously was great early season, and it still has moments, but I think with the health coming back to this Buccaneers team, with the overall talent and just kind of readiness of this roster, I think they're going to be able to beat the Cowboys, get to the conference championship, where I think they beat the Packers again. And I have a Buccaneers-Titans Super Bowl. Derrick Henry versus Vita Vea, Tom Brady versus Ryan Tannehill. The absolute storylines of this being Brady's last game as a Patriot and now his chance to kind of beat them as a Buccaneer. I think he does it. I think the Buccaneers still have a very dominant ground game with Leonard Fournette. They've kind of regulated that. And I think as we get into playoffs, we'll see them kind of go more into the trenches. And I think the trenches are still very much full health. I understand that, with Antonio Brown gone, with Godwin out for the season, there's some issues in the passing game. But a lot of playoff games are won in the trenches, and Tampa Bay has some of the best trenches in the NFL. Tom Brady is going to get the job done as a passer to keep the offense open. I think Tampa Bay does it again this year. It's hard to ever count out Brady, and so that's why I'm going with Brady here in my Super Bowl prediction, and therefore I'm going to give him the Super Bowl MVP as well.
I really hope that if the Bucs win the Super Bowl this year, I want to see Gronkowski get an MVP. I think he should have won it last year. Would have been very deserving. All right, Michael, I want to ask you a weird question. Of the teams you have losing in the first round, who has the best chance to win the Super Bowl?
I think I hate to say it. I'm not a fan of this team, but I think it might be the Steelers.
Steelers. Wow. Okay. Big Ben going out on top.
Yeah. And the defense is phenomenal, right? And that's one of the biggest things for a playoff run. It would be like the Giants, where it's just like the offense didn't do poorly enough to really hold back this phenomenal defense. And I think with the momentum of this is Big Ben's last run, if he is loved in the locker room, then that's going to add a boost to this team. And we saw it with Denver and Peyton Manning's last run, where they kind of got it going. And, obviously, well, I guess Buffalo is probably the easiest.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to pick Buffalo.
Yeah. No, I forgot that I didn't pick Buffalo. But outside of Buffalo, I think Pittsburgh is probably higher chance than Arizona, higher chance than Las Vegas, higher chance than San Francisco, higher chance than Philly, because the defense is there. I think with the momentum that kind of goes into, look, this is our legendary QB's last run, we need to carry him to that, then there's a real possibility that some momentum really carries through. And also the AFC is just kind of open wide. KC's not unbeatable. If they play that next game against Tennessee, if they can stop Derrick Henry enough, then Tennessee is certainly beatable. And then after that, any other team is as well. So while I don't think Pittsburgh does it, I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh goes on some annoying run.
Yeah.
I would hate it because I'm not a Steeler fan.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine Steelers win, they beat the Chiefs. Next week, they beat the Titans. I mean, that'd be a tremendous storyline. But I'm surprised, Michael, you don't have the Patriots beating the Titans.
The dark memories of Derrick Henry just running through our defense still haunts me.
That last pass by Brady.
Yeah, it was hard to watch. And I think Tennessee still has a lot of great traits as well. Derrick Henry obviously is phenomenal, but I think with Julio Jones here and healthy now for playoffs, I think the passing game is going to open up a bit. I think the defense it was phenomenal how well they flipped the script despite not really making a ton of changes in terms of just like adding people. They were really kind of cut short in terms of budget, and they still were able to flip around this defense and turn it around. So that's why I think Tennessee probably outmatches the Patriots. I think Patriots are a team built for the future, especially with Mac Jones. I think opening up this offense is huge, but I think Tennessee right now, hopefully down the line, I'm going all in on the Patriots again now.
All right. I mean, we'd all love to see Patriots Bucks. That's for sure. So we'll see if we get that before Brady retires. But, this is going to be very, very interesting. And I think the matchup I'm least intrigued by is definitely Cowboys 49ers. I'm not really expecting that good of a game. The game I'm most looking forward to is obviously Monday night, Rams Cardinals.
Yeah, that's going to be an extraordinary game. I can't wait to watch it. I don't get why they're doing like a Monday night game, I get it for like capitalizing on prime time
but it's not fair to the
but
teams. It's not fair. Like
yeah,
it's not fair to whoever wins. I would assume whoever wins is playing next Sunday, not Saturday, because you can't give them
yeah,
that early. But it's not fair because whoever they're playing is going to be practicing Monday. They're going to be practicing. So
yeah. And
we'll
there's a
see
very real chance they're playing the Packers, who had a bye week already.
Right.
So definitely not ideal, but that's the NFL. You know, trying to capitalize their pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is all we have for you here on Destination Draft Day. We will be back for the Monday episode to talk about some of the games, you know, not the super wild card game, but the other games we'll talk about. We'll discuss the momentum potentially from those games. We'll have plenty to discuss. We'll start looking into the draft a little bit more, as the declaration deadline, I believe, is that 17th. So we should have a lot of our people in the draft officially set. So very
And
exciting stuff.
we also got the Jets coaching staff is coaching the Senior Bowl, and who is the other team that's coaching the Senior Bowl?
Lions are coaching the other side,
right? So Dan Campbell and Robert Saleh. Be interesting because the top two teams, the other two teams ahead of them aren't available because you don't have a coach in Jacksonville. You don't have a coach in Texas with the Texans. So there you go.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting stuff, and we'll be here to talk to you guys about it on Destination Draft Day. Thanks to everyone in the comment section, and thanks to LandryFootball.com. We'll see you guys on Monday. Take care.